Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Shades of Entrepreneurship. This is your host, Mr. Gabriel Flores. Today, I'm here with Molly Rose. Molly, how are we doing?
I'm doing great. Excited to be here and have a chat with you.
Yes. So, folks, it's kind of funny. We were just briefly chatting right before we got on the show. What Molly really kind of created is, I feel like, something that almost everybody wishes they truly had, and maybe also kind of truly wishes they created, to be honest with you, because it's such a cool thing. But before we get on all that, Molly Rose, please introduce yourself. Give us a little background. Who is Molly Rose Speed?
Yes, absolutely. So I am the creator of Virtual Assistant Academy, a certification program for what we all know now as virtual assistants in our business, and the founder of Virtual Assistant Management, a placement agency for said virtual assistants. So I've been working in this space for over 13 years. I've served all different entrepreneurs from all different walks of life, doing all sorts of things with their operations, and learned everything from A to Z. And now I have the pleasure of teaching people how to follow in this footsteps and support amazing entrepreneurs that are probably listening on this show.
Yes, you know what? That's the interesting thing about like I'm in the healthcare sphere, and the pandemic kind of made us realize not every department needs the in-person, concierge look and feel. There's definitely some departments they'll still need it, right? But for the most part, it's certainly like the automation world has really came to life. And now, is that your kind of experience? In fact, take us back even before you created this business. What did you kind of do before, and how did you start all this?
Yeah, so I'm a military spouse. So I was engaged to someone that was in the military. I was deploying all the time, and I was in corporate finance for a healthcare system, actually, and thought that was the path. I'm going to do healthcare. Great, great career trajectory. I was going to get my MBA, do the whole thing. But along the way, that 10 days of vacation a year, having to show up at 8, leave at 5, not being able to travel, just like quite frankly got in my way. I'm like, this isn't the life I want to live. And so I did the riskiest thing, in my opinion, of my own life. And I quit my job cold turkey and got married. A few months later, he came home from a deployment to an unemployed fiance. And like, okay, give you about 3 months to figure this one out. And I did. And I got hired to do a social media crowdfunding campaign for a student loan debt documentary 13 years ago, basically to the day. And I had no idea what that meant. I'm like, well, I'll Google it. I'll figure it out. And I did. And we were successful. And from there, the founder of that needed a new assistant. I'm like, I can do this. And it just snowballed. And I just learned and figured it out. And now I love this space. I love supporting entrepreneurs. I love automation, everything you hit on.
Tell me a little bit about your mindset during that kind of decision, because I think that's the biggest part about entrepreneurialism is truly the individual that is really. I mean, at the end of the day, entrepreneurship is everybody has an idea. The difference is somebody's going to do something with that versus somebody not. Now, you kind of made a huge decision where you had, you mentioned a corporate job and you have 401k, you're getting, benefits and whatnot, to just leave it.
Yeah.
Take me through the mindset. Why did you make that decision?
Yes. And again, I say that literally the most scary thing I've done. And right, you go to college, get the job, making 50 grand at 23, that was like great, or 25.
Yeah.
Honestly, it came down to not being afraid that I wasn't going to eat or have a roof over my head. Like it was like that kind of thought process. I'm like, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? I'm not going to be able to spend money for the next year. Okay, but someone's going to feed me and I'm going to have a roof over my head. And I know that sounds really, aggressive, but my mom said that. She's like, I'm so sick of you crying every day. You go to work, you're calling me crying home. This isn't okay. I'm going to make sure you're okay. You're always going to have that. And I just took a leap. It was the best decision of my entire life, quitting that job and starting this thing on my own.
I think that's another kind of a piece of that entrepreneurship that's kind of needed, is really kind of, your support system, the people that have your back, the people that are kind of going to say, you know what, I believe in you. You got this, keep going. Because that perseverance that's needed throughout these, trials and tribulations of entrepreneurship is vastly needed. So shout out to all those individuals that always have our back. Now, let's talk about a little bit more about your business, specifically with the power of automation, because that's where we're kind of jumping into. So talk about the power of automation and how to streamline, our businesses as entrepreneurs for growth?
Yeah, absolutely. So I argue when we're starting our own business, we wear 27 hats that we didn't sign up for or didn't know we were signing up for. We started for a specific passion, if we're lucky, or a service that we knew we could provide. And along the way, we end up having to do bookkeeping and social media and building a website and having email marketing, all the things we know that we have to do to run a business. I could go on and on. And there's a few things that I think can really support us to stay in our zone of genius, the reason we started our business, and that's outsourcing to whether it's a human, AI, or systems and processes, automation can do it for us. And if we as business owners begin to do this, we get our time back. We get to do the things that we love at least 80% of the time. That's my goal for my clients. And the rest runs on autopilot. So that's the beauty, I think, of automation and or outsourcing. Just get back to what you love and let the system do what it's built to do for a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, you said something I absolutely love. In fact, a former guest, folks, go check it out on theshadesofyou.com. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. But one of our former guests, The Zone of Genius. Yes. The Big Leap, the book. I actually have it right over here. Yes. The great book. But folks, what Molly Rose is really talking about is we all have our core competencies, right? Things like we're pretty good at, right? Those areas. But then there's these things like the zone of genius where it's like you do it and you're doing it so well, but you also do it and you don't even know like you're taking up time because it's like you also enjoy it. Talk about your zone of genius. Where do you feel that kind of lies?
Yeah, for me, it's 100% in setting up new systems for people. So I use a software called Kajabi, if you've heard of it. It's an all-in-one platform.
Yep.
So the minute I work with a new client on that, it's like Christmas morning, like new account, we're putting the branding in, we're setting up all the systems. I'm like, this is my jam. Anything.
I love when people nerd out on stuff.
Yeah. I know. And I love it. Meanwhile, the client's like, oh my God, I just bought this software. I hate it. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, oh, and that's it. The creatives don't want to be doing that stuff. The more analyticals are like, let's go. So that's right now, that's what I love right now.
It's kind of funny. You said something great. Like the creatives definitely hate that. Like I hate that space. Like I hate that. I have Adrian, shout out to Adrian. I work with her in the healthcare sphere and she's very like, program management, kind of keeps everything in line. I'm just like, oh, if without you, I would be absolutely lost. Mm-hmm. So it's so important. But also, I think a lot of entrepreneurs would be lost without an assistant because you mentioned we do wear so many hats. I'm learning about all these market segmentations and think about if you're a philanthropist, you're over here. If you're a customer over here, thinking about different ways to communicate what's their value proposition, how often should I connect with them, and so on and so forth. And so as you begin to do this, does your team also create, like, as your virtual assistants kind of begins to grow from just a small little mom and pop shop to a larger corporation? How does your team really kind of continuously grow with that system?
Yeah, it's very similar to my path. Just I fast track it for them, hopefully. When you start as an assistant or you're hiring an assistant, they might just be doing email management, calendar scheduling, some travel booking, like that basic assistant thing that is actually super valuable. Having that person in your inbox frees up insane mental space for an entrepreneur that I think everyone should have, a gatekeeper. But then they grow with you, right? They get their feet wet and they're like, oh, you just signed up for Squarespace. I'm going to learn everything I need to know about it. Or a Kajabi as an example, or whatever. I can name 100 different softwares. And getting an assistant who ends up being an operations manager, a project manager, always, if they're good and they stick with it, to grow with you and have the autonomy to just take things over is where that really cool partnership lies. And you'll get someone, if you're lucky, who cares just as much about your business as you do. Like, loves it. And I've experienced that with clients. It's possible. You just have to give them the reins and let them grow with you and be an assistant that wants to do that.
What would you say are one of the clients, feel free to drop some names. What would you say some of the clients, like when you're talking about some of those integrations where you help scale, what are some of your success stories?
Oh, totally. I work with is an assistant. You need to change your language there. You work with people. I work with Patty Aubrey. She was the backbone of Chicken Soup for the Soul. So I call her the $1 billion brand builder. She made all those deals happen for Jack Canfield, Mark Victor Hansen. And so I run her business start to finish. And when I came in, she had a ton of money on her business credit card, wasn't automated, wasn't making money the way we do now. And I came in, set up Kajabi for her, and just cleaned house. And now we support so many people in a way more streamlined way. And it's just been super fun. I'm hosting a retreat with her next week to teach speakers how to engage from the stage and speak. And I'm bringing in an old business partner, the first guy that hired me 13 years ago to lead it. He's a public speaker. And that's another success story. His name's Adam Carroll. We've done millions in speaking engagements over the past 10 years. I'm his booking manager now. Never thought at 25 I would be doing that.
That's awesome.
And just creating a system for them. So it's just they show up. I like, for him, I say, I just want you to show up and speak, and I take care of the rest, right? And that's been really fun.
Oh, I love it. I got to tell you this, but speaking is it's taken me years to get into, public speaking is very interesting. Sometimes you go up there and you start to ramble because you get a little nervous, right? And so but then once you get comfortable with it after several years, again, folks, I've been public speaking for like 15 years now, but once you kind of get to that point where you're able to like tell a story, some of my favorite, best public speaking moments is if I have the audience cry. Like if I have the audience cry, I'm like, oh, I got you guys now. Like I know I have you in my hand. Now it's just closing it and making sure I like usually close it with like some type of inspiration or something that really makes the individuals that are listening, it pulls it all together, the story, but then it kind of gives you a bit of a call to action to like, okay, you can do this too, kind of thing. But I love public speaking, and I love the fact that you kind of said, I just want you to show up and speak. So I want you to dig into some of those little tactics that exactly what do you guys help? Because now you got me intrigued. So what is some of those little things that your team really does help these entrepreneurs do that they don't have to worry about?
Yeah, I mean, let's just take a speaker, for example, and you could probably take the same if you're a coach, right? Everything from having the proper lead form on a website that you're leading, the entrepreneurs link someone to via social media or speaking from the stage. They fill that out and then it goes into your pipeline, and you either have to make a call, usually for a speaking engagement because we're high ticket, you got to have a good sales call, or there's some type of follow-up sequence for it. And then from there, it's the professionalism of closing that deal, right? So you get on a call with them, you're sending them a follow-up email within hours of the recap. This is what this speaker is going to do for you. This is the audio, it's all discovery. And so it's a little sales, but you can grow and learn that as an assistant and trust that as a speaker. And then it goes into automated, a contract's ready, the same contract sent, you just make a few adjustments. Invoice for 50%, booked travel. It's on the speaker's calendar. They show up and speak. Send the second invoice, send a thank you, get a testimonial, pop it on the website, and done. Right? And that's something you don't have to do as a speaker. Someone can do all of that. You just show up and do your brilliance. And then I always say, work the room so we get more leads. Right?
Yes, I always work the rooms, and one of the best things about going to conference, folks, it's not about the actual lectures and sessions. It's the networking. Get out there and like go out to the round robins, if they do restaurant round robins, get out to the happy hours, really build that. Now, one of the things you also mentioned, Molly Rose, was, as virtual assistants, it's sales. You mentioned there's some sales piece, but you can learn it. So talk about what the impact the Academy had for the virtual assistants, and talk about some of that programming and what they get learned or what they get taught to do.
Yeah, so it's a two-part program. There's the business side, because they're learning to run their own business, right? They're 1099, not employees anymore. So there's all of that, from setting up your LLC and your accounting and pricing and proposals and contracts of your own. And then we have a tech side, teaching you a lot of the tech I mentioned already. But then we have a community, and a lot of what goes into, especially new virtual assistants, and then those that become more tenured and are able to do a lot of the things that I just shared, it's all around confidence. And I know it's like 101 of everything we do, but it's a lot about what we talk about. Like, believe that you can do this. You're not just an assistant, you're now a booking manager, or you're an operations director for this company. So that comes into a lot of it. And then we play, we role play, we practice, we give people scripts, and just teach as we go. If they're on a sales call and it doesn't close, let's analyze it, and that's a good thing. Let's practice, see how things go, and coach to it. So a lot of that is included.
I like that. that kind of fake it till you make it piece. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and folks, I don't mean like, I've talked about this in previous episodes, and I kind of feel like this is also a good way for some individuals to kind of overcome some of their imposter syndrome. Is when I say fake it till you make it, just like Molly Rose did when she's like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and apply for this position, but I'm also going to learn it. I'm going to go to different people. I'm going to learn this information. I'm not just going to wing it. Like, she actually went out and she's like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I believe I can do it. And I'm going to learn how to do it. And then I'm going to be a badass at doing it. And so it's like, you can do that as well. But you just, like Molly Rose said, it really is about the confidence and taking that leap of faith, but you have to have faith in yourself. And that's also why I was kind of mentioning, the importance of having that support system around you, because there are, very difficult moments in entrepreneurialism that is like, oh man, I wish I could talk to somebody, but as you mentioned, they're 1099 employees and there's not really people that can relate, right? So what is the moment in your kind of growth path that you were like, oh man, did I make the right decision? Or have you had that moment?
Oh, completely. I mean, I never questioned going down this path. I've questioned maybe how I do stuff, and it takes way longer than it should. I think one of the important things I did early on was I started attending conferences, as you said, and started networking, and my big vision is to have that for all the supporters of the world. So talk about your project manager. Like, there's a place for the entrepreneurs and the ones that own the business, but all the ones that are behind the scenes doing the work, it's like, where's our center to get fueled up and fill our cups so that we can go do great work. So I had to kind of just find that. So I was part of mastermind groups of people from all different industries. That's been really great. I go to a lot of personal development retreats and conferences and just do exactly what you said. Just network, talk, get to know people, go back the next year. And it's really propelled my business.
Yeah. And I always encourage folks, nobody starts at the finish line, right? But there's ways to get closer to the finish line by going to these conferences, learning, networking. There's other individuals that are willing to help you out as well. And you might be very much like Molly Rose, where you're in the corporate industry, and including myself, where you determine, you know what, I think it's time to pivot, right? I'm actually on the wrong track completely, right? Running the wrong race. And that's okay too, because again, I think there's going to be individuals within that sphere that help you. Now, Molly Rose, you kind of briefly mentioned to it, but talk about and you've kind of alluded to it. You actually provided some really good examples, but talk about the importance of networking to your business.
Yes. So I've never marketed, not one day in 13 years. I mean, I've thrown some social media posts up, sure. And what I love about networking is I think relationships are so important. And by the time you do a discovery call with someone that was introduced to you by someone else, you're already on the upside, right? You already have points of, if let's just say there's 100% that you have to get hired, you're already 30 to 40% there because someone's putting their recommendation on the line. And I think that's super important. So the more, the bigger pool, the bigger network I have, the bigger opportunity I have of people coming in through that. And I think that that's super important. Also in this space, you can work for people you don't want to work with. Like you get in relationships where you're like, I do not want to work with this person. We're not jiving. And so by having a network, you're kind of creating those like-minded people that are referring you to the right people. And I think that that's also helped. So of the 75 clients I've probably worked with, I'd say maybe there's 5 that were bad eggs. I'm like, get me out of here, right? And that's pretty good. It's pretty good.
That if you're batting that in the Major League Baseball, you're probably the Hall of Fame. So, I'm just saying, folks. Now, one of the things you mentioned too, I mean, obviously the quality of work in word of mouth is so important. But one of the things you mentioned that I really like, and I would love to kind of expand on that a little bit, is the discovery call. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about that first interaction with the entrepreneur or founder. What are the questions you're asking? What are you seeking to understand in their psychology to really help them grow their business?
Yeah. So think about this as an assistant, and if you're a business owner, if you're hiring anyone, kind of wear that lens. I think when you're an assistant and you're doing a discovery call, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. You have to remember it's your business, your service that you're providing. So you want to make sure they're a right fit. And I think that goes missed quite a bit. And seeking to understand these questions. And if you're an entrepreneur, look for this and make sure they understand, like, how is that business owner generating revenue? What are their systems? How do they obtain clients? How do they process payments? What's their follow-up? What do they want to be doing all day? What are they doing that they shouldn't be doing all day? All those are questions that I either get them to tell me or I blatantly ask, and I provide that for my VAs now as a form to make sure that they. But if you're talking to someone and they're asking those kind of questions, they understand business. They are understanding, okay, this is where I can be of help. I can get a full understanding of what they do, how they do it, and who they do it for. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, I like that model. And it's like, again, I think it's understanding like that pipeline, right? Like you're basically, I need to understand the sales funnel, right? Where are those leads coming from? And I really like what your team really primarily focuses on, because it's like, right, you have the marketing funnel folks. And again, like Molly Rose said, I haven't marketed. It's word of mouth, because again, the quality of work and getting out there, but it's also the quality of the sales funnel that you've created, it seems like, right? And I really like that, because it does create this sense of ease. You mentioned the 80%, right? You want your clients to be able to focus on 80% of their own time, which I would love to focus on 80%. I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and these kids are crazy, right? More time is even better. Now, with that said, where do you envision the whole virtual assistant remote work world going in the next, 5 years, maybe the next decade?
Yeah, we brought up AI a few times, right? And there's this big talk around it's going to replace all the virtual assistants in the world, and that's we said right before we started our conversation that it's those that are going to be able to operate and work with AI that are going to be on the upside. So that's number one, what I'm trying to instill in our team, and any assistant, work with AI, get to know it, and have fun with it. It's really great. But also, I think that as everything is going 10 Mach speed after COVID, people are getting way more comfortable working virtually, and the skill sets that we need out of assistants are in super high demand, but they're just getting more and more, right? These softwares that are coming out are incredible. Like what we used to take 7 systems to do, we can do with 1. So we need assistants that know how to operate that. So they're becoming operations professionals. The word virtual assistant, I don't even want to hear in 5 years. And that's something I'm trying to figure out. It's just got so much clickbait. I have to use it right now, but we do so much more than that. And I just think that the industry is going to keep asking for more, and we need to meet that higher level. So it's exciting. It's exciting.
Yeah, I cannot agree with you anymore. Like, folks, again, me and Molly Rose were on this call right before we pressed the record button talking about it. And to Molly Rose's point, humans won't lose their jobs to AI. They're going to lose their jobs to humans using AI. Now, with that said, I would, again, encourage you, if you're looking like me, I'm being completely transparent. I'm trying to create my own SaaS product right now. A lot of folks, everybody that knows this, right? I own founded a nonprofit, Latino Founders, right? We help support and scale 100 Latino businesses to $1 million recurring revenue in 5 years here in Oregon or the Pacific Northwest. Check out the latinofounder.com if you're interested to learn more. But nonetheless, the goal with that, right, is we do a lot of pitch coaching. So we help these entrepreneurs get them prepared. So now I'm starting to think of, okay, well, what is it that we currently do? And folks, I would encourage you to do this exercise no matter what job or entrepreneurial endeavor you're trying to do. The first thing I want you to start thinking about is, what do you currently do or what are you able to do, and what can't you do and why? Right. And then also start thinking about the consumer. What do they consider valuable out of those things you're able to do? And out of those things, what can be automated? Right. Yeah. So for example, how can I automate QuickBooks to actually create graphs that now can be presented into your presentation? So we do have a actual true forecast for your business, right? We can look at your number, because again, if you're going to do a pitch competition, they're going to ask you for your forecast. They want to see your last 5 years and next 5 years. Where are you going? Where have you been? What are you doing right now? Right. Now, as you begin to grow and you start to think like, okay, well, what other things can you do? Well, one thing I'm starting to think about is, you mentioned the 1099, who can do 401ks? Some states actually have state sponsors 401ks, some don't. Some have other programs, some have an IRA. So it's also a lot of these entrepreneurial things that there's like no hub for entrepreneurs, right? And so kind of thinking of that nature, but kind of in that sphere, again, I'm not taking anybody's job. In fact, if I create an AI system, a SaaS product that actually helps business coaches like Molly Rose, somebody like this, right, that has, people that they're working with to make Molly Rose's job easier,
Yep.
she's going to be better for it. Not only that, but now that industry, she's going to be the outlier of the industry. She's going to get more clients because of it. And now I'm going to get probably more clients because the individuals are seeing that Molly Rose is doing so awesome because of the SaaS product. So again, you have to think about that structure and think about it in whatever sphere or market or, lane you are in. Again, the goal is to find a problem and a solution and a value. There's already a lot of solutions to a lot of problems. Okay, well, how can you make the solution better? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always ways to do it. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to add to that, it's also trust, right? There might be 10 systems that do the same thing, but creating that trust and being that person that behind the business, I think can also really set you apart.
Now, one of the things you also mentioned was like you like it because one, you haven't really done any marketing, but two, you get a lot of clients and you have this network that they send you the right clients. So, hey, this is a good opportunity. We're gonna go and promote Molly Rose. Who's the right client? Who are you looking for?
Yes, and we can help you get there. The number one thing that I say is being clear, right? That question: who are you? What do you do? And who do you do it for? Or how you do it is key. And you'd be surprised the amount of discovery calls we do, and we're like, oh, so what are you doing? And they're still figuring it out. It's not the right time for you to start hiring, right? We need to you need to get your brain clear on what you do. And I say that with all due respect. Entrepreneurs are squirrely. We're like, ooh, shiny object. Let's go.
Yes.
Let's go. And if you're supporting someone like that, and I've done it, it's hard. It's hard to get traction. It's hard to be productive. And it just doesn't set the partnership up for success. So that's super important. And then once you're clear, then I always say, if you don't know exactly what it is you need to outsource, again, to AI, to automations, or to a person, it's that old school, write down all the things you do. What are the things that you are competent, incompetent? You kind of led to this earlier. And the things that are in your zone of genius. We want to get as many of those zone of genius things as possible. Get the things that are incompetent off your plate immediately, and then start to work those things that are competent off your plate that you just shouldn't be doing. Someone else can do it far faster. So that's kind of the space I want you in by the time you get there. You do not need to be type A. You don't have to be, super organized. That's our expertise. And then let someone guide you through being your assistant and showing up and getting those tasks off your plate every week and giving you a shiny report on Friday, like, look at all the stuff we accomplished. Next week we can do this better, or next week I'm going to be focusing on this. It's kind of like end goal.
I love it. I like the also kind of like you don't have to be organized. We'll be organized for you. I think that's a big important piece. And I completely agree that entrepreneurs are squirrely. I know I'm extremely squirrely. My wife will tell you that as well. but the thing about it's like every entrepreneur always has an idea, right? They always have a new business idea and they always want to do something new. But I'm kind of at that discovery stage in my own personal journey where I'm like, okay, now I'm starting to narrow down my focus, my target audience is, what my purpose. And I'll be completely transparent, folks. Again, the reason I started this podcast, during the pandemic was selfishly. I got to, interview awesome people like Molly Rose, learn about all these new businesses. Again, go check out theshadesofb.com, make sure you subscribe. But there's so many different unique business opportunities out there for everybody. And if you're struggling finding inspiration, I would always encourage you to get out and travel. Like, get out, check out the world, see what's going on, go to a farmer's market, go to go check out anywhere and like check out processes, check out the operations, see what's going on. What do you like doing? What do you don't like doing? And you're going to start to see like, oh man, I really wish, like, once you start finding annoyances of something, okay, now that you found a problem, what's the solution to that problem? Are there solutions to that problem, and how can you make that solution better? If that's what you truly love to do. And that's another thing too, is entrepreneurship kind of sucks sometimes. Make sure you're passionate about it, guys. Make sure you're really wanting to do it. The reason the Latino Founders Nonprofit, the reason we have that $1 million threshold is because that's kind of where it becomes a hobby to a business. One, Two, that's where the entrepreneur can truly actually pay their employees a competitive wage. And then lastly, that's where the actual founder can finally pay themselves a wage. Like there's a lot of like people think, oh my God, $1 million, that's so cliche. No, it's like that's actually kind of the plateau where a business becomes a true business and a founder can begin to pay themselves. It does sound like a lot of money, but once you start taking on the operational costs and the cost of doing business and employment, it's not that much. So again, it's just kind of not trying to discourage anybody, actually trying to encourage you. In fact, now Molly Rose, before we go, what's next for your future? Where do you want to continue to see yourself going?
Yes. So I'm going all in on creating kind of what I shared a little bit ago about these supporters of the world. I need a better word for it, but creating a community, maybe a live event someday. Like I picture us showing up at like a Kajabi conference or a SaaS conference, and we're having meetups, and it's for the people that are the backbones, right? The organizers that are running the businesses for people. That I want to elevate that crew of people to be the best that they can be. If you're an assistant that needs to up level and wants to make more money, that's my sweet spot right now. I want to have competent assistants all over so that nobody feels like, oh, I've had an assistant, I've been burned before. Well, if you have one of ours, we do it right and do it well. So I just want to support the supporters and blow that industry up.
I love it. If you have one of ours, we do it right. I love it. Molly Rose, man, like closing it. So folks, again, you can check out all this information, Molly Rose. We're going to have all this information on theshadesofE.com. Check out the newsletter. We'll have this information. In fact, I'll make sure I get a link from Molly Rose so those individuals that are interested, that are hearing that, hey, you're an assistant, you're wanting to learn more about the academy, go ahead and click on that link. Go ahead and subscribe to the newsletter. We'll make sure you have that information. Molly, before we go, is there any last words?
I love saying this, and I was practicing in my head while you were talking. For entrepreneurs that started this for a reason, or for assistants that are trying to get out of corporate or whatever phase you're in, just remember that the reason we're doing this is to create a career around our life, not a life around our career. And so if you created a business and you're back into that ladder, don't get yourself out of it quickly with a lot of the tips that we shared today.
I love it. Molly Rose Speed, the founder of Virtual Assistant Management. Again, folks, you can find all this information on theshadesofE.com. You can also follow us at The Shades of E on the social sites, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And you can also stream this episode on YouTube. For those Patreons that pay $5 a month, you'll have this information early. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and press stop. Me and Molly are going to have a little discussion about this virtual assistant program. And for those Patreon members, we'll be able to view that on our Patreon page. Everybody else, thank you and have a great night.